Welcome to a new Daily Top Askreddit video. Today's topic.
What are your thoughts on Democrat Taylor Rehmet flipping a district in Texas in the special election yesterday? Both parties need to take note, this guy is a veteran and a working guy, also, he's not 60 to 80 years old. More of this energy, please. Well done Texas. 100%. I'm done with retirement age representation. Edit, well, except Bernie because, well, it's Bernie. What's sad is that between Trump and Biden, Bernie is the only one who still has any wits about him. Democrats keep running young, smart vets and you've got a recipe for success. You're narrowing your talent pool if you only allow vets. The flip is not the story. The 30-point swing is the story. This was not a random event. Also, him being outspent by $2.2 million and winning with that margin. I hear a lot of cope from conservatives that the race didn't matter, because the legislature won't be in session until next year and he'll have to run again in November. If it didn't matter, why did his opponent need to spend that much money? Exclamation mark. Is that the line they're going with in r/conservative? Let me put it this way. If the Democrats are swinging the tide that far in places that used to be staunch GOP, this should be a brick through the Republican Party's window. Mind you, it's a long, long way to November. But the hits keep getting worse and worse. And every election, the GOP has to spend campaign dollars to hold on in states like Texas, which means they will be hard-pressed to fund campaigns in other states. The other thing, I haven't looked at the polling on this, but voter motivation matters a great deal. At this point, it's not just a matter of voters changing sides, but voters getting off the fence, too. And traditional GOP voters simply opting out this time. They're voting by not voting, so to speak. Fuck man, I'd crawl through broken glass to vote these fuckers out of office at this point. I would walk barefooted across 5 miles of Legos. I think the video of Trump audibly shitting himself in a news conference video elsewhere in my Reddit feed basically says it all. I can't decide if that's what actually happened or not. But I hope so. He most definitely farted, bare minimum. Lady in green behind him notices. She even starts touching her nose at the end. You're welcome. Texas is a general mirage. Seats will flip, but I don't remember the last time a Democrat won statewide, but it's good. Flip all the seats and prove me wrong. Consider, however, this district has been held by ours since 1991. This was a giant flip. Before yesterday, people could say, I don't remember the last time a Democrat won SD9. By the next general election they'll carve up SD9 so it cannot go blue ever again. It only happened because all the Republicans attended that movie that Amazon produced with that director who is in the Epstein files, open mouth smile. Release the files. All of M. Testimony and all. I'm from this district. There was something else that influenced this race that the nationwide media won't know. Late last year, the Keller ISD school board behind closed doors started talking about a plan to split the district between Keller proper and the Fort Worth portion of the district. Literally along the train tracks that run next to Highway 377. The wrong side of the tracks. 2 board members leaked this on Facebook, blowing the lid off the whole scheme. They had a special meeting called to push this through with no public input, until it got leaked. The Keller side would keep the most affluent portion of the district and all the shared facilities, and the other side, which was 3/4 of the district in terms of schools and population, would be left with nothing, and would have had to rent out the athletic facilities in order to use them. Needless to say, the west side of the track wasn't just the pause, or the Democrats. This is still in a predominantly right-leaning part of the county. Republicans who had just voted for these school board members were caught off guard, finding themselves in the outgroup for once. They had been used, they had been betrayed, and oh did it make everyone livid. I've never seen anything galvanize Republicans, Democrats, different races, different economic classes together, quite like this proposed school district split did. The neighborhoods mobilized, brought enough scrutiny, vitriol, and lawsuits to the board, and eventually the board backed off on this plan and abandoned it. But the damage was done and several of the members were voted off the board the following year. All of those board members had been backed by Patriot Mobile's PAC, which Lee Wamsgans was the CCO of. People didn't forget what the PAC almost did to the school district when it came to this election. I think that was a huge part of why North Tarrant County swung against her specifically. This exactly. I think national media, and even state to an extent, is not capturing this big piece of the situation. Wamsgans wasn't just another run-of-the-mill MAGA candidate, she really shat the bed locally, and that drove way more people to AD candidate than may have otherwise gone. DAMMMMNNNNNNNN. Teacup hot beverage teapot bubble tea fire, thanks for the tea. Thank you Jesus. However, Trump is actively working on rigging elections, so our work is only beginning. All the more reason to show up in huge numbers and vote blue. It's much, much harder to rig losing by 1 million votes than 1,000. Good sign, but won't make that big of an impact yet unless a lot of others flip and he wins the re-election. I am hopeful that all these places that gerrymander districts get super competitive and it becomes a cautionary tale of the majority not wanting to push their luck. I think gerrymandering is super shitty, but the past has always proven that you can get away with it in small increments, where few people are paying attention. The Texas gerrymander was stupid because they assumed all the inroads they made with minorities were going to stand while they did terrible policy. Yeah, before 2010 Republicans invested heavily in flipping swing state governments so they could heavily gerrymander them. This gave them a huge advantage in the 2010s in the US House. Democrats were able to take back parts of swing state governments for the 2020s redistricting and break up some of the extreme gerrymandering in places like Michigan and Pennsylvania. However, the most blue states besides Illinois did not heavily gerrymander. California, Colorado, Washington, Oregon, New York, Virginia and more mostly avoided it or couldn't get gerrymandered maps through. Republicans, however, did everything they could in states like Texas and Florida to cling to any semblance of an advantage they could in the 2020s. What ended up happening is we got maps that are within 1% or 2% either way to the national popular votes. Now in 2025-2026 Republicans are like, wow, we have one data point for an election we did really well in. We already maxed out gerrymandering to such an extreme in 2020. Let's use a single data point on a good election for us to try to gain more seats. Whereas the Democrats responding to the gerrymandering in places like California, Virginia, New York and Maryland are like actually doing real gerrymandering based on several historic voting records and not one election. My thoughts are that this plus the earlier special elections are a message that the midterms, if they are allowed to proceed, will be a landslide victory for Democrats. I think Republicans are very aware and will have something in store to disrupt, delay, or cancel the midterms to prevent impeachments. They know what's on the line. They're trying to incite people to take out a couple ice jackbooters so they can declare martial law and suspend the elections. At least, that's what it seems like to me. We've seen, twice, that impeachment is meaningless if the cowardly Senate doesn't vote to convict. And even then, what happens? He needs to leave office. It's something, I guess. It's huge. I'm a Texas native and was born in Fort Worth. Featuring Worth, Tarrant County, has been the largest, red, city in Texas for decades. I think this recent redistricting, which was developed and enacted prior to the overly aggressive ICE push, is going to backfire on Republicans. At risk of painting Mexicans with too broad of a brush, Mexicans have long been a conservative and staple voting bloc of the conservative Republican Party here in Texas. They have been by and large religious, with a strong sense of familial values that naturally meshed with the family values brand that Republicans use to rely on to appeal to voters. But that's the problem. They identified more as Bush Republicans, not what MAGA Republicans has morphed into recently. There are very few Mexicans that don't have first-hand or close second-hand experiences with family members and friends that have been nabbed and whisked away without so much as a phone call. To put it simply, Mexicans here are pissed off, and it's starting to be apparent at the polls. Also from Tarrant, often enough the Mexican families have been there longer than Texas has. Added to the pile of elections we had in 2025 that also had big Democratic swings. If Republicans aren't nervous, they should be. They're nervous. Hence, growing public support for the SAVE Act. Edit, GOP senators publicly supporting the SAVE Act. In 2024 Dems won a bunch of special elections and that didn't matter much when it actually came election time. In 2024 the average special election swing was under 1%. In 2025 it was 14% towards Democrats. Mark my words America, come November armed ICE brown shirts will be pulling security duty at each and every one of your polling stations. I'll make sure to let out some really gross farts while pointing my ass directly at them. There's a Taco Bell right by the freeway that I could hit before my hour-long commute home from work. That'll give it some time to ferment before I get to the polls. LMAO. Vote out every Republican. Trust me, the Texas GOP and Republican analysts are probably shitting bricks at how much of a blowout this was. It doesn't mean everything, but it's encouraging for a big flip in the midterm elections. I think it's great. The Republicans hitched their wagon to a felon and his unqualified cronies, and now they have no future or movement beyond just sucking Trump's nuts, which will hurt them in a general election. Hoping it's just the beginning. Republicans and MAGA are in an echo chamber cult and are in for a rude awakening as they think they are much more popular than they actually are. Hitler was more popular than Trump. These people are delusional and have warped reality to suit their narrative. Everyone else not in the cult is sick of it. This does work both ways. There's lots of folks like me out there, liberal, love to read, fascinated by other cultures, realize the huge hypocrisy of wanting desperate people to come in and do the shit jobs we don't want to do, then being shocked that they stick around. That the war on drugs isn't a supply problem, it's $100 billion of American demand that someone will always try to fill. And all of my friends agree on those things. I don't really have friends that think it's funny to lock up 5-year-olds because they're brown, and that January 6th was a day of love but Minneapolis protesters are terrorists. But I have acquaintances, people I knew as a kid, older family members, who post amazing lies and BS and twist themselves into knots to defend this crap. They are surrounded by friends and family that are like-minded. When Trump lost to Biden, they simply could not believe it. Everyone they knew voted for Trump, had Trump banners, hated that people were speaking Spanish in the grocery store, that we were losing America. It was really easy for Trump to convince them something they wanted to believe. MAGA is a cult. The left is not. Not sure how it goes both ways. There are still Republican lifers that continue to vote that way regardless of who the leader is. The cult is bad, yes. But honestly, those that are against Trump but still vote for a Republican just for the party loyalty and equally problematic. Hitler at least provided public health care. That's how fucking grim the current USA is. The irony that Hitler was more popular than Trump really pisses MAGA off, but it's true. Most of Germany was behind him at the time compared to the measly 1/3 supporting Trump. It's even less than 1/3 lol. They act like they are popular. They are not. They are a delusional cult.